I started out with
Ready to start today's meeting of the Technical Advisory Committee. Larry is on jury duty today, so here I am. Thank you for all joining us today. First of all, we'll start with introductions, going around the rooms, starting with Edie.
Edith Tata, City of Laurel Park. Mona Ibrahim, Town of Windsor.
Craig Scott, City of Kentucky.
Mike Berger, City of Sonoma.
I'm from Laughlin, Sonoma County Public Infrastructure.
Sure, yeah, we'll back here. Chris Barney, SCTA, RCPA.
Adam Garcia, SCTA, RCPA.
David Schmey, SCTA, RCPA.
The Nichols, SCTA, RCPA.
Mayor of Tahoe, Sonoma County Public Infrastructure.
Ken Eichstadt, City of Petaluma. Mario Landeros from Sebastopol.
Tarina Wilson, City of Santa Rosa.
David Britta, SCTA, RCPA.
Shauna Gauze, SCTA, RCPA.
Elizabeth Tyree, Sonoma County Regional Parks. And Drew, is there anybody online?
Yeah, and we have Jennifer LaRoe from the County of Sonoma on the screen. And then the other three boxes are staff that are in this room.
Thank you. So with that, is there any public comment?
Members of the public are here actually.
Okay, being none, we'll move to approval of meeting notes from March 28th. Any comments on the meeting minutes? Or questions? Well, minutes are approved then. So moving on to item 4, Measure M and Go Sonoma.
I think item 4.1 is mine, Madam Vice Chair. This is the invoicing and obligation status that is included in every month's packet. It is an informational item that allows you to see what has been invoiced recently, whether or not you are past or nearing your 6-month deadline for invoicing if you have an open appropriation, or if you have funds programmed that have not yet been appropriated. That's it.
Okay. Any question? So moving on to item 4.2, Measure M 2010-11, SLPP funding exchange.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll handle this item. So those of you that were back on the committee back in 2010 might remember this item. I don't know if there's anyone still left, but way back years ago, the Proposition 1B State Local Partnership Program had a formal share for SCTA, and there were some funding swaps done. At the time, there was some funds committed to small cities to go with their projects when the larger cities in the county were receiving Measure M LSP funds instead. And at the same time, there was funds set aside for the Measure M bicycle and pedestrian program. There was a funding swap that was approved back in 2010, and unfortunately, that was never followed up on until now. And so we are budgeting that in next fiscal year's budget to do the distribution to the small cities. You can see in the attachment how much each of the small cities will be receiving. And then additionally, we'll be putting money into the bicycle and pedestrian program. So this is funding coming out of the Measure M 101 program, and it was a funding exchange that was approved a long time ago, but you should be seeing a small bump in your LSR amounts for fiscal year 24-25. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, this is good news. Thank you. Moving on to item 5, regional information update.
So again, this is an informational item. The federal inactive obligation status got updated. It hadn't been updated for a month, got updated the day I was about to just include the last month's list in our agenda packet, but it did get updated. So I have highlighted the notes area. If your notes are stale or have, or if there is no information included. So if you, I don't know, you can all see that item. And some of you don't have the packet, but I provide the list that Caltrans provide this on the Caltrans website, and then we add another column for essentially what you told us last month. So if that statement hasn't changed for a number of months, then I've highlighted that in red, meaning please provide me with some updates. That's it.
I do like your color coding
Thank you.
on your format. It's easy to track. Are there any questions? Any of the agencies? Okay, moving ahead. Item 5.2.
5.2 is an item that SCTA staff has been taking to the board on a biannual basis. It's essentially, we put it together as a way for board members to see the delivery history of each of the jurisdictions for federal funding. That's how it started. It has morphed into not only federal funding, but some state funds, including HSIP and those state programs that SCTA tracks. So STIP and local partnership program, those types of funding sources. So we bring this to the board every 6 months or so. We brought it to the board back in December. We want to take it again in June. So we're bringing it to you to make sure that the information that is included in the spreadsheet is accurate. There are a couple of cells on a couple of the sheets. It's sorted. Each sheet represents one jurisdiction. So and a couple of cells on a couple of the jurisdictional spreadsheets, there you'll see yellow cells that I need information for. So if you could update that information, that'd be great.
Yellow, what about the green?
Was there
Green cell, yeah, there's a green.
That's funny that just came in, right?
let me navigate to that.
Thing. Maybe it is, they're all green on mine.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that means so the green means it's the most recent programming. So that's the cell, the whole cell is highlighted,
Yeah.
but if it's yellow, it means that I need information. And so if you can provide that, great. If you don't have that information, that's fine, but please let me know that so that I can include that when I send that information to the board. And that will go in June. So my staff report requests that you respond by middle of next month or yeah. Let me see. I have it. Meant to look this up before we got in this meeting so that I would have that, but.
So everybody.
There it is, 5/13.
Report.
By the 13th, if you could provide that information by the 13th, that would be outstanding.
Thank you for preparing the very thorough report for each of the agencies, and highlighting where information is needed. Again, that's very helpful to go through and quickly catch what you're looking for that, and let Shauna know if there's anything that's not correct.
Yeah, and just to close the loop on all the colors, and I apologize if there's anybody who's red-green colorblind. The green cells, again, are the new programming. Anything that's in red text just means that it's updated since the last report that went to the board.
So no colors, you're good.
No colors, you're good.
No colors, no obligation. Just another,
But take a look for correctness.
Yeah, make sure that it's right.
for clarification, you said the green was just the most current, I think that's the most current federal, because in Sebastopol, there are 2 HSIP, which are state funded, 2020.
Oh, are those not on there?
They were on there, but they're not green cells, they're the most current.
Oh, so those have happened since, because I think I might have, yeah,
Yeah, so you have them listed,
okay,
but they are not,
they're not highlighted in.
they're not green, so
Okay, I can change that.
just
That's
just
not a
want to
problem.
clarify that. to
Sure.
understand that, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I see them there and I will make them green.
Those are the green, the other isn't, because it's not the most current.
Okay.
Yeah.
Happy to.
And also, Shauna, you know, you said you want comments back by the 13th, but if there's any information that's not in there that you're not asking for specifically, but could be added in there, do you want that
Yeah.
comment? Okay,
Absolutely.
great, okay,
Yes, please.
will do.
So this is an action item. Do we need more than people taking action on it?
Nope,
No
I just
vote?
need, it's just, you have to respond. If you have information, you should please respond by the 13th. That's the action.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
All right, so on to item 5.3, Safe Streets for All grant program.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So this is an update from our previous discussion. We did receive a number of applications from the cities of Cotati, Healdsburg, Petaluma, Warren Park, and Windsor. And we've had discussions also with the city of Santa Rosa and with Smart, who are both going to be submitting their projects separately directly to USDOT. Looking at our list, we had about 3.7 million requested for 2 implementation projects from Petaluma and Healdsburg, and about 2.2 million in planning demonstration projects from Cotati, Petaluma, Rock Park, and Windsor. Looking at the applications that we received, staff is recommending that we wait until the August deadline to submit a planning demonstration only grant application, and that we will be working with the city of Petaluma and Healdsburg on supporting their requests for potential HSIP funding in the upcoming call for projects for HSIP cycle 12. Both of those projects were previously submitted to HSIP, so they should be able to compete pretty well. And we're committed to supporting both cities with their applications. And also, since we are going to wait till August for our regional application, we're open to receiving more submittals from other jurisdictions that may be interested, or additional information or refinements from the other agencies. We are in the process of bringing on a new staff member who will be hopefully starting in about a month, and she has a lot of expertise in this area. And so we are committed to working on a strong regional application with everyone, and we're hopeful that we'll be able to submit something good in August. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Edie?
Is there a risk in waiting till August, like all my go well?
I don't believe there's any risk. The federal government just passed the appropriations bill for the remainder of this fiscal year, and that did result in some additional funds from the implementation side of the Safe Streets for All grant. Given the lack of demand the last couple of cycles for planning demonstration funds, I don't think there's a big risk till waiting until August. But the other issue was, if we did proceed with the May deadline, we'd have 3 weeks to put everything together, and it's rather hard to do that when we have limited staffing and we're in the middle of budget season, and you all are very busy as well with your budget seasons as well. So that's why we decided to wait till August.
So implementation isn't included all?
The implementation grants are due on May 16th, and we are recommending not submitting those this cycle, and instead working with Petaluma and Healdsburg to potentially submit their projects for the HSIP cycle 12 that's coming up.
So if there's anything lacking in our submittal, do comment on them and send them back to us, okay?
Yeah, so we're going to have probably the next 4 months to be able to collaborate and come up with some additional information that may be needed, and have plenty of time to put something together. But we'll follow up with any other questions or additional materials that we need.
Thank you for that. Any other questions, clarifications needed from the group? All right. So moving on to the update on transit-oriented communities, and is an MPC presentation or?
Yes, Madam Vice Chair, the BPC staff will be joining us at 2. Is going to present on this item, so if you can come back.
Okay.
When she arrives, would be fantastic.
Terrific. So jumping ahead to item 7, local contributions for fiscal year 24-25.
Let me borrow the short timer's microphone there.
So this is an item, it's just an informational item, right? These are the funds that allows SCTA to operate. You know, we're primarily grant funded, but things like rent and holiday time and things like that are critical for us to exist as an organization and to host meetings like this. They are asking for a modest, just over 2% increase based on CPI. This item will then go to our board in May for approval and adoption, and then we send out the RCPA contribution shortly after that. we'll wait until the final budget is approved in September before we send out the invoices for the SCTA contribution. And with that, I would just ask if there's any questions on the item, and that's it.
All right, seeing no question. Thank you for the presentation. It's rolling right along. So item number 8, transportation for clean air. This is an action item.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So this is the TFCA fiscal year 24-25 program and projects. Our current distribution methodology has set asides for the transit operators, and then also a portion of the funds go to a competitive call for projects. We plan on revising this in potentially as soon as next fiscal year to shift to 100% competitive process. But this is the current policy is adopted by the SCTA board. So we received a number of applications from both the transit operators and also City of Santa Rosa Transportation Public Works and Petaluma Public Works and Utilities. We had sufficient funding to award all of the transit projects, and then one for City of Santa Rosa for buffer bike lanes on Cleveland Avenue, Pine Road, and the other one for SCTA's Go Sonoma commute program. Unfortunately, we didn't have sufficient funds for the City of Petaluma's D Street bike lane gap closure project, but it would be highly competitive in the next cycle, next fiscal year. And with that, staff would recommend your approval for the fiscal year 24-25 program projects as shown in table 2.
Does anybody wish to provide any more information on any of these projects? Any question about?
Bake chop?
Is that a question? Is that? I'm sorry?
I'm gonna mute the other mic too.
Okay. So any question on any of the projects or the recommendation? Sorry, Petaluma, that you're not on the list this time. And so does this require a vote of the TAC?
Yes, we are looking for your recommendation to the board for approval of the program projects as shown in table 2.
Would somebody provide a motion?
We'll move. We consider that we recommend approval of the fiscal year 24-25 TFCA fund program to the board.
In a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, this is passed. Thank you for preparing your report. Okay, so item number 9, TFCA and TDA Article 3 quarterly reporting.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. So this is the quarterly reporting for TDA Article 3 and TFCA projects. Should note in your staff report, there are certain deadlines associated with each of them. And Dana and I are available for any questions that you may have. I should note for the TFCA projects, we will have the next round of reporting is due at the end of May. So I will be following up with the TFCA project sponsors on making sure we have the information we need to submit to the Air District. But with that, this item is provided for information.
Any questions from any of the agencies? All right, thank you for the report.
I said, we're screaming through the.
Item number 10. SCTA, RCPA meetings.
It appears Drew is pulling that up right now.
We're still waiting for ETC.
Yeah. We have one, some information items that can go over this.
So Drew's bringing it up on the screen. It's the agenda for the upcoming meeting. Thank you.
Here's the draft agenda for the May 13th CTA RCPA Board of Directors meeting. We have the meeting this from April, fiscal year 23-24 Q3 financial report, personal policy update, the NT mitigation program contract award to Karen Pierce, and that is all the consents. On regular, there is the fiscal year 24-25 TDA Article 3 program of projects. And then the Transportation Fund for Clean Air program of projects. And Go Sonoma interfund loans from Measure M to Go Sonoma. Our annual budgets and a legislative update. The RCPA side will discuss carbon sequestration through compost application pilot project. And then an update on the climate funding strategy if any. And then our standard reports that we can share.
Well, thank you for the update, Drew. Any questions from anybody? Are you seeing the items on there that you expect to see? Okay, thank you. So moving on to item 11, the roundtable discussion and informational items. Shawnee, you mentioned you had some items.
I do have a couple of items, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you. For those of you who have not yet responded to Alfredo Valderamos's request for the information on data collected for the HPMS traffic data request. This is a requirement for being eligible for funding through MTC. So if you have not already responded, I know that we did get a response from both Sebastopol and Petaluma, and those two were needed. I have reached out to Cloverdale, so they are also working on it. Roanoke Park, I have not heard yet, and then Sonoma. And I think, Mike, did you also respond that you had no update, or do you still need to respond? I can't remember. There's been a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, I had no update.
Okay, you had no update, nothing had changed. Okay, did you send that to Alfredo?
I believe I could check.
Okay, if you haven't, if you please would, and all you have to say is no change. And he'll count that, but it does have to have a response.
You didn't mention Santa Rosa, do you know?
Santa Rosa responded on April 5th.
Great, thank you.
And the other item that I wanted to include, just to bring to your attention. Apparently I shuffled the pages, so now I don't have the front page. That's awesome. There it is. So there are a number of CAPTI listening sessions. CAPTI is the Climate Action Plan.
Transportation infrastructure and
And
transportation investments.
Transportation investments program, and there is a transportation infrastructure. So there was an announcement. I believe I sent it out to everybody, but I did want to bring it to your attention. So there are in-person listening sessions, and then there are virtual listening sessions for both Northern California and Southern California. The Southern California, you don't care about Southern California. Northern California listening sessions in person are to be held at the Caltrans district headquarters in Oakland on April 30th, it's next week. And then there is also a virtual listening session that is scheduled for Thursday, the 2nd of May. So they will both happen next week. But if you are interested and want to participate in that, then I would recommend that you register, particularly since the in-person listening session has limited capacity. So they need to know how many people are actually going to show up. But if you're interested, that would be something good to participate in. Also, I included it in our internal staff recommendations, but I should have sent it to everybody. CTC, California Transportation Commission, recently sent out a solicitation for evaluators for the ATP program. I participated in this a couple of years ago. I highly recommend it. It is a significant investment of time. So just be aware of that going in, but the value that is gained from being an evaluator and understanding what it takes to get to a competitive point value in order to be awarded funding is incredible. So I do suggest that if you are interested in that sort of thing, that you consider becoming an evaluator. They pair you up with someone else from Southern California. You have a partner. Essentially, you get 3 hours of mandatory training from CTC staff. You have about 5 to 6 weeks to complete your evaluations. You get somewhere between 9 and 15 applications to review. There will be all different sizes, the large projects, the medium projects, the small projects, the large projects with non-infrastructure in components. And you go through the way I did it with my partner. We went through, made the evaluations on our own. Then we set up several meetings where we went through each of the applications, went back and forth, because there has to be a unanimous agreement on the point values that are assigned from each team before you submit those back to CTC. So, but the process of actually evaluating each one of these projects and applying the criteria really gives you an in-depth understanding of how those point values are achieved. And I recommend doing it if you have the opportunity, or if you want to assign it to, someone on your staff. It's a worthwhile process. So I recommend that. And if anybody's interested, I'll be happy to send out. You probably should have received it already from the CTC, but if you didn't, please let me know and I will be happy to send it out.
Mine showed up as spam, so
Oh.
look in your spam folder if you aren't seeing it, because the way they do their list and then what they add on the end of the email, it might go to spam. So thank you for that, Shauna.
Sure.
Moving on with the distinct items underneath 11, any updates from the group on grants being pursued?
I did see Steve Urbanek with his hand up earlier. Don't know if he had a comment to add or just wanted to let you know it's down now. But
No, I thought we were just gonna talk about some stuff going on. I'll let you guys keep going through the agenda. I'll talk to you guys afterwards.
Okay. So grants being pursued. Folks want to share what grants they're pursuing right now. I'll lead. We are moving forward with priority conservation application. I know others are considering that as well. Opportunities we're considering are both for Sonoma Shelbyville Trail design work and also possibly additional funding needed for Hoodman Boat Launch, which happens to be on Bay Trail and also part of the Bay Area Water Trail. So that's our nexus there. Others?
Santa Rosa is also doing the PCA grant for, we're gonna ask for money for the planning and design for Southeast Greenway. That's our only PCA in the city limits, so hopefully that's a good, indication for that application. And then we did get awarded a grant from US DOT. It's not money, it's technical assistance. It's another one of the situations where we submitted a letter of interest and they never formally opened the grant, and then they said we got it. So we don't totally know what it is, to be honest, but from what I can parse together, it looks like US DOT has hired consultant groups. There's 3 different ones, and they're working with local jurisdictions on whatever project they applied for. It's all technical assistance. Our project is figuring out how to implement a low stress connection between Prince Memorial Greenway and the future Southeast Greenway site. Which means after doing that and then continually pursuing Southeast Greenway, we'll have a continuous east-west low stress connection throughout the city, which is amazing. It seems like the technical assistance is public outreach, figuring out the best options, and then that there might be some alternatives too, and they'll help us figure out in terms of finances and environmental impact, which one would be the best one to pursue. And then I also think that at the end, they help with grant writing to then fund the project. So that's what I know, but I can tell you more as we move throughout the process. So when that comes up again, I can tell you about it. It's the Thriving Communities one. I think I applied in like September or something, so. That's exciting. That's what we
Very
have.
exciting. Others to share?
We're also looking at a PCA grant along either Bodega Highway or Dry Creek, something like that. We're looking at that. We had a question, actually, I don't know. So I guess the projects can be like, get funding from like 200,000 to $1 million. And I think if you go above that, it has to be like regionally significant. And so I don't know what kind of that definition of regionally significant is. But just curious. So if anybody knows, that would be helpful.
Which grant did you say that was?
The PCA,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
That was a hard one. We're gonna make the claim that Southeast Greenway gets you to like Ganadell, Taylor Mountain. And then on the west side that it pretty much, I mean, there's that gap in our downtown, but it pretty much gets you towards like Prince Memorial Greenway, which then gets you to Joe Rodota, which then gets you to West County Trail. So we're gonna highlight that and
Yeah.
see if that qualifies, but
Sure.
we also don't know
Okay,
what that means.
yeah.
So just, I'm gonna ask, I missed it, but PCA is which one?
Priority conservation area. It's through MTC, so they did a process
gotcha.
where they identified those spots. You can apply for projects that will link people to priority conservation areas, so you don't technically have to have one. And then it's mainly like habitat type restoration or agricultural land type of projects, but there's a section about transportation. So in Santa Rosa, our Parks Department is gonna take over the application, but we're working closely with them on the application.
And really related to bikeways, pedestrians, multimodal.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the county during OBAG 1 or 2, I would think it was OBAG 1, the county public works was awarded a PCA grant for, it was like farm to market kind of a thing.
Exactly.
So it was used, but it was recreation area to metropolitan area, and it was essentially used for paving, and MTC did not like it. Just FYI.
But did they fund it?
They did, but they didn't like it, and they won't do it again.
Okay, good to know.
And we received funding in a later cycle for the bridge replacement project on the Joe Rodota Trail. And part of the regional significance was connecting Sebastopol to Santa Rosa in a highly used, non-motorized, multi-purpose trail corridor.
I feel like the county should this is totally personal, but I think the county should partner with state parks on Wrights Beach.
Right.
They've got a terrible washout on their entranceway, and I think that could be used to improve the access to that location.
I will say, building on that, we did look at if anything was ready enough, because it's a pretty short deadline when you have to complete a project. I think it's just 2 years. And so we looked if there might be opportunities for a California Coastal Trail, which takes you all along the coastline and over state park lands as well. So we looked,
I bet it's
Do
hard
that way.
because there's so much environmental that has to happen.
we didn't have a project for enough long.
Yeah.
We have one in the queue right now between the community center, kind of north of Bodega Bay. So it's connecting you from the community center down to East Shore Road. But that's funded right now, so we're moving forward with that. Any other grants being pursued? Sharing, anybody online, Drew?
Not seen any hands raised online.
I forgot that Santa Rosa is also doing ATP. And we're submitting 2 projects because they have the main ATP pool, and then they have a second pool that is quick build. And so for the main pool, we're doing our North Dutton project, which is moving a lane in each direction and adding class 2B. And then for the quick build, we're applying for Cleveland Avenue. If I remember, we have so many projects, road diet in each direction, class 2B, and then in some areas where there's less driveways, we'll put bollards in. So we're doing that one too.
So do those two projects overlap with your TD Article 3 and TFCA projects?
It will link to right where the TFCA is ending. That project, yeah. So the whole corridor would be class 2 and class 4.
And I thought North Dunn was funded by TD Article 3 this round, or was it partially funded?
That is partially, so we got 200,000 and project cost is between 800 and a million.
All right, so moving ahead, unless anybody has anything else, moving ahead to bid environment. What are people seeing coming in for bids? We have things out to bid right now, so we're keeping our fingers crossed. Any updates from anybody?
Steve's got something.
Okay. Steve,
Yeah, shockingly, prices are super high now. I kind of alluded that last meeting. We just opened our, the 24 pavement preservation program, and let me get the tonnage right. I think we had about 46,000 tons of hot mix in this project. The low bid was 166, almost 167 a ton, which is not quite 44% higher than it was last year for the same exact type of work. So, you know, we're a captured market here. We know that from a materials perspective, but I think there's some dynamics, you know, globally that are impacting oil costs and that kind of thing. So anyway, that's what I have to report. Disappointingly, I'm not sure what things look like in the valley where there's a lot more competition, but we've been tracking the asphalt index, you know, Caltrans's asphalt index as well. So big numbers this year. I don't know if anybody else has seen that reflected in some of their projects that have opened lately or not.
thank you for sharing that. That is disappointing news. Anybody else sharing on bid environment or other business comments?
I saw your city's awarding Southwest Boulevard.
Yeah, but it was right on, actually, but, and the bids actually came in close, but oh yeah, I can say that they're the awardee and contractor, they are already on the waterline project underneath Southwest Boulevard, so they're there. Did they take some road down? I don't know, a little bit, but we're pretty pleased with the bids coming right on its feet, so rolling right along.
That's good news.
Good news. Let's see. Anybody else? Do we have MTC ready for, oh, Steve.
Yeah, sorry, this is not about the bid environment, but it's, Shawnee, you kind of triggered a question in my head, and it's about the ATP stuff that you went through when you were an evaluator. And I wonder if there wouldn't be value to the entire TAC if you could give us the trips and traps that you learned when you went through the evaluation process, maybe save us all a little time, maybe? The next TAC meeting,
I actually did that, but
oh, okay.
do it again.
I thought you were gonna say something like you signed an oath or something.
No secret here.
That's right. I signed an NDA. No, I'd be happy to. I'll be happy to do that again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can give a quick introduction on the TFC policy. So Eileen Adams from MTC is here today to provide some information about the transit oriented communities policy. So she's already talked to the planners as well. So they're in the loop. They've been in discussions about this, but we wanted to make sure to all of you as well to, you know, hear the information, hear the schedule, and to, you know, ask any questions. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn things over to you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you today. I'm going to pull up a slide deck here real quickly. So again, I'm Gillian Adams. I'm a principal planner here at ABAG and MTC and leading implementation of our TOC policy. Let's see. So a little bit of background. The policy was adopted by MTC in September of 2022. Its goal is to try to support the region's transit investments by promoting places where people can use transit, walk more often, and just have kind of more comprehensive neighborhoods around our transit stations. One of the key features of this is that MTC has committed to at least considering TOC policy compliance in funding decisions, and that includes future transit stations as well as existing transit stations. The first place where we're really applying this for the existing stations is OBAG 4, which is expected to kind of kick off in 2026. And that's the deadline that we're giving jurisdictions to get into compliance. It specifically applies to the half-mile area around existing and planned fixed guideway transit. So we've got regional rail, light rail, BRT, ferries, and the policy itself has kind of 4 core elements. There's land use density, affordable housing, parking management, and complete streets and multimodal access. And all of this is kind of in support of implementing Plan Barrier 2050. So just a little kind of a very high level summary of what is required in the policy. So for densities, we are asking jurisdictions to adopt minimum densities for new residential and commercial office development. The station areas are kind of grouped into 4 different tiers based on the level of transit service. And so the density requirements vary by those transit tiers. We have affordable housing and commercial stabilization policies that we are asking local jurisdictions to adopt. We have the affordable housing, there's production, there's preservation and protection policies, and they have to do 2 of each of those 3 Ps, as well as 1 commercial stabilization policy. We have parking management. I guess I would say the main one there is instituting parking maximums for new residential and commercial uses. Those again vary by the level of transit service. And then there's also specific requirements related to bicycle, shared, and unbundled parking, as well as asking jurisdictions to adopt 1 TDM or curb management policy. And then lastly, for the transit station access and circulation component, they have to comply with the complete streets policy and prioritize active transportation and complete an access gap analysis and identify opportunities for mobility hubs. So kind of where we are in this process, we have been doing significant amount of engagement with local jurisdictions. As Chris mentioned, that's mostly the planning, housing, and staffs. Those are the areas where we've been focusing our efforts so far. We did one-on-one meetings with, it's about 65 different jurisdictions that have a TOC area. So the first one focused on kind of helping them figure out a path forward for complying with the housing policy requirements. And we're in the middle of meeting one-on-one again with all of the jurisdictions, talking more about density, parking, and the station access. We have been working on the administrative guidance for the program. We've done, I think we're up to about 4 different rounds of kind of back and forth with local jurisdictions and other stakeholders. We had been anticipating kind of releasing that in March, but decided that we will wait until we're done with this second round of engagement with jurisdictions. We've been learning a lot about some of the nuances and how best to explain how jurisdictions can meet the TOC requirements. We are also working on an online submission portal, so an opportunity for jurisdictions to submit the documents and information that we need to verify that they are in compliance with the policy. We're hoping to release that in the next couple of weeks, kind of an early version so that we can have jurisdictions test it out and give us feedback on it to make sure it's as helpful as it can be. And then I don't think these will come as a surprise to you, but the kinds of questions that we're getting from jurisdictions that are sort of tough for us to answer right now. What are the deadlines for complying with TOC policy requirements? How exactly is the TOC policy compliance going to impact OBAG 4 funding? And then we had this conversation with MTC policymakers about whether they wanted to allow for a certain amount of flexibility in terms of meeting the standards. I think there's a concern that it's a very comprehensive policy. It has a lot of requirements to it, and it's going to be a challenge for jurisdictions to kind of be 100% compliant for their station areas. And so, where is it that we can allow some flexibility for jurisdictions kind of in the short term? So this is kind of a draft timeline for how we are kind of planning to move forward with integrating the TFC policy into OBAG 4. So we're anticipating that we will have kind of a first committee meeting discussing OBAG 4 in early January 2025. That's a little bit earlier than MTC would sort of normally start the engagement process around OBAG 4, but we want to make sure that we're giving jurisdictions in particular a lot of time to kind of weigh in on this. We're setting a proposed summer 2025 deadline for jurisdictions to submit materials. It's not a hard deadline, but I think we're hoping that jurisdictions will be able to kind of submit materials as they go along instead of waiting until 2026 to compile all of the information. And we want to encourage jurisdictions to kind of get us stuff early, partly just to facilitate that approval process, but also I think we want that information to inform any discussion about flexibility and kind of where jurisdictions are finding it the hardest to meet the TFC policy standards. So that's the conversation that we anticipate having in fall of 2025 is, again, talking with our policymakers about where they feel it's appropriate to allow for some flexibility on meeting the standards based on the experiences that jurisdictions are facing. Then we would lead to OBAG 4 adoption in January of 2026. And then a deadline for jurisdictions to submit their final materials sometime in the spring. And then if they kind of have an ongoing process where there's kind of, they've committed to, say, adopting a policy or doing some other work, but they're not quite done by then, we would give them till the end of 2026 to kind of wrap up that work. And that would lead to fall 2026 would be the main time period in which MTC would be reviewing the materials that we've gotten from jurisdictions. Again, that December of 2026 deadline for any kind of remaining actions that needed to be taken, and then starting in early 2027, sort of final scores or compliance verification, and that leads into kind of the county and local projects, and then the regional projects later in the year. So in terms of next steps, again, we're in the middle of this one-on-one meetings with jurisdictions. So we anticipate finishing that up in May. We're going to release our final administrative guidance and the online submission portal. We are anticipating providing ongoing support to local staff as they submit materials. Again, we're kind of trying to set up a framework where we can do a lot of back and forth about helping jurisdictions figure out what they need to do to comply. And then we do anticipate developing additional technical assistance resources. So sometime in the spring, hoping for May, that we'll have kind of a letter of interest going out to jurisdictions where they can identify places where they think they need some financial support, technical assistance, like a planning grant or some feasibility study or something like that to get into compliance with the TFC policy, and then working on getting funding out the door kind of sometime in the summer. And so, we've kind of, that's one of our main messages to jurisdictions right now is trying to figure out, helping them figure out what their work program is to get into compliance, and that way they can give us information about what kinds of technical assistance would be most helpful to them. And that's it. If you have questions, we've got our website here. You can reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them now.
Gillian, thank you for the presentation today. Thank you for the summary. I have one suggestion on your cover slide. Please spell out TOC.
Okay.
It's not a term I'm familiar with, and
Yep.
Yeah, it would give a good introduction for what the presentation is. And
Yeah, I fell into the acronym trap. Okay.
I did say just rolling off acronyms, so yeah, do that as well. Thank you for that, and I'll open it up to our committee for questions that they have. And Chris, if there's anything else that you'd like to provide as an overview for Sonoma County.
Yeah, the one thing I'd say is this is a standing topic of discussion at the planning advisory committee, so. Staff. You know, since there is a tie-in with OVAC funding, I encourage you to at least have some familiarity with it and maybe check in with your planning staff on where they are.
Yeah, and just to build off of what Chris said, this is kind of, as you saw in Julian's slide, the timeline's out. We're going to be probably doing our next call for projects for the SCTA funding program, including OVAC 4 in summer 2025. We'd be selecting projects in 2026, and MTC would be adopting OVAC 4 projects in the early 2027 timeline. And so making sure that your participants are in compliance with the TOC policy ahead of that call for projects is going to be very important over the next year.
And I'm obligated to say that that's our draft schedule for now, but that is what we're anticipating.
I do have a question from Santa Rosa. I was talking with one of our planners earlier today about this topic because we have a very large project in the entitlement process right now that is a block away from a smart station. And so I sent a Teams message and said, can you form your question a little more eloquently? So the question that we have is, how should projects that are currently going through the entitlement process be aware of or incorporate these policies? And if the project's already nearing completion, does MTC recommend starting over with the design of the project and subsequently new entitlement process? And the context there is that there's a huge vacant lot, fully infill within a block of a smart station where the proposal is not very high density and there's a lot of parking included. So I'm curious your thoughts just off the bat. We do have another meeting with MTC, so we will ask the question again, but I'm curious for those in this room if you have input.
I guess so. I think a specific answer depends on the context, but I guess what I would say is kind of high level. The way that the density requirements work, it's an average across the station area, which kind of leads to some complicated outcomes. But I guess maybe from the regional perspective, if what you're saying is true, it would be better if that project was different. I understand that that's not always possible, and I think there's, sometimes things have momentum and we don't want to stand in the way of it. But I guess what I would say on the density is if it's lower than that kind of minimum density threshold that they have to meet, they would have to increase density somewhere else to kind of make it up in that average density calculation. So I guess that's something to consider. And then the parking standards don't have an average part to them. They're just an expectation of parking standards in general across all the parcels within the station area. So I think there's a point at which we would say, that project is sort of past a point where it can be modified. It just would be maybe just a little disappointing.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for that. Anybody else? Well, thank you for being with us today and thank you for presenting this information and the
Thanks for having me.
process. All right, bringing it back to the agenda, I guess, is there anything else for good of the order today?
And Vice Chair, if I may, I'd like to thank Ken Eichstadt for his years of service for the city of Petaluma, and congratulations on your retirement.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bjorn Griepenberg and Jeff Stutzman are going to be backfilling these, so you're going to be in good hands. Thank you very much.
How soon is that coming up? Like yesterday?
Oh, eating at the block at 5. So.
Oh my goodness.
That's what I need.
Yes, wow. Oh my God.
Don't hate me. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Keep up the good work. It's encouraging to see, SCTA and how we all collaborate. And it's, it's a wonderful thing. It's very, as an engineer, it's, we love to problem solve and we love to improve our front yard, backyard, and this group really does a great job. So I'm impressed. I'm impressed. Thank you.
Thank you for your years of service. Thank you for being part of this committee and other committees.
Yeah, you're a likable group of folks.
All right, and with that sad note, I would say we're adjourned.
Best thing you can do.
Okay.